For most problems, there's usually more than one way of getting a job done. And woodworking, or more importantly enhancing your workshop, is no exception. And for years, whenever I've needed to get round a woodworking issue or just get a workshop win, I just grab some scrap wood and make one of these, or these, or these. And in a way, we're going to do this today, but with a twist. I honestly believe that every woodworker can benefit from these 8 tools. 8 tools that will help you get around annoying issues that every workshop faces. And I'm going to show you 2 ways, the scrap wood way and the 3D printed way. And to save you designing any of what you're about to see, there's a bundle of files right now on my website. There's a link down in the description if you want to take a look for yourself. So, let's go with tool number 1. These are bench cookies. I made these in a previous video a while ago. All you need to do is cut a couple of circles out of 12mm plywood, glue them together, and then stick something grippy on the faces. But since making these, I've found out that some work better than others. For grip, cork is great in the short term, but doesn't hold up as well over the long term. The same can be said for these rubber draw liners, which eventually lose their grip entirely. After a lot of experimentation, I found that these sheets of gasket material, made out of nitrile infused cork, did the best job. They're cheap to buy, they're easy to apply, and the grip lasts. These are good. They're good for raising up sheets of plywood if you're going to cut it with a track saw or a circular saw. You could potentially save a lot of damage to your workbench. But the main use I have for them is when I'm sanding, to keep the piece that I'm sanding from moving while I'm doing it. And I know there are versions like these that you can buy for around about £20. But there is another solution. I have 3D printed these. And in the files for sale on the website, you'll see there's 3 different iterations. You've got the mini, you've got the medium, and then you've got the large. And what I've added to them, similar to the experimental wood ones I did, is this slightly under 20mm in diameter bench dog. So not only do they stay in place on your workbench, but due to the hole I've put in the top, they also stack together nicely. Keeps them in one place. And there's something free that I'm going to show you shortly that I think will top these off really nicely. So all you do is pick a size, print them, and then as before, we're just going to add something grippy to the top and trim. Do they work well? I'd say so. Whether you make these out of wood or 3D print them, these are super useful, dog or no dog. And here's a quick bonus. This one is a free download on my website. Once again, the link's in the description. This is the holder for stacking your bench cookies when they're not in use. And I've made one for each of the sizes. There's already holes so you can just screw it straight to your wall or screw it to a French cleat. And then just stack your cookies and store them away when they're not in use. I know that the bundle of files from this video is at a cost, but I will always endeavour to put up free files wherever I can onto my website, so do keep an eye on that if you haven't got the budget to spend on files. Now briefly, back to the bench cookies. This hole leads on to the next tool. These are painter's triangles, cheap and cheerful. They raise whatever you're working on away from the bench so you can apply finish to both sides. First, the homemade scrap version. And this is really simple. Hammer a thin nail into some wood, cut the top off, do this a few times, and Bob's your uncle. Or, there's the 3D printed way. These are painter pin dogs, or something like that. For this one, I decided to print them into 2 parts. That way you get a much crisper, cleaner job. You just simply fix them together with some CA glue. And they just drop into your dog hole, or a number of dog holes, and they'll support your work while you're applying finish to it. You can finish one side, pop it down on the pins to apply finish for the other. And they drop straight into the middle hole of your bench cookie if you want to raise the work up further. And because the bench cookies sit on top of each other, you can raise it as high as you like. Now, these are pretty small and you don't want them floating around the drawers or on the floor in your workshop. So check out tool or file number 3 in the bundle, the dog tray. Simply stick this in a drawer with all of your bench dog accessories in it, your painter's pins and so forth, and it'll just keep everything together. Print as many of these as you need to keep everything nice and tidy. Of course, you could very easily take a piece of scrap wood, drill a series of 20mm holes in it, and you'll get the job done the same way. Oh, this brings me really nicely onto tool number 4. It's just a simple workbench dog. It's just a round pin with a nice lip like the painter's pin that stops it falling too deep into your hole. And it's got a nice flat surface to clamp your work against. These are really quick to print, and as we do it in one piece, unlike the painter's pin, you've got all the strength you need. I've loaded 2 slightly different files into the bundle. One where you've got a smaller lip, so you don't need to be printing supports for it. And the other with a slightly larger lip, which comes out a lot crisper because you do have to do it with supports. Can you make these for yourself with scrap wood? Absolutely. All it is a just under 20mm dowel with a nice cap on the top to clamp against. You can either do a little bit of joinery on it and drill through, or you can just glue it straight to the top. A lot depends on how much strength you need it to have. Or if you don't want to make it at all, you can buy these super cheap aluminium ones off Amazon. I mentioned this in a previous video where I first got into 3D printing. To make and adapt numerous prototypes with wood is fun. It's really satisfying, but every tweak you make means cutting more circles or cutting more dowels up, and that's okay, but it can be a little bit time consuming. And don't get me wrong, it has its place, and I talk about this a lot. Days when you've got limited time or you just need an escape down to your workshop, these 30-minute workshop wins are priceless. But if you just want to make small tweaks and test multiple ways before you can get to the perfect win, well, that's when 3D printing comes into its own. And this is exactly what happened with my V-blocks. You can absolutely make these out of wood, but the number of tests that I've run would make this incredibly time consuming. Now, what these are for is for doing jobs like chamfering. Now, and I've shown these before, but since then I've had a little bit of a rethink. The idea is you hold a piece of wood on its edge to chamfer or shape the edge facing up. Originally I made them butt against my planing stop, which worked really well, but then I realised I could incorporate the stop in the block itself. Now you can use them anywhere on your workbench. And more than that, one of you told me that a hexagonal dog would actually print better on its side without the need for supports than a round one. And I experimented with that too, and you were right. It is a little bit looser and probably could do with another few tweaks, but it's fine. Again, both iterations are in the bundle. As for the wood ones, it's as simple as cutting a long length of triangular stock. You want the right angle at the top and the other angles at 45 degrees, then chop it up and glue it to a board. Bonus points if you plane the inner corners just slightly, and then you could drill in a dog or, like I've done here, just glue on something grippy. And there is one thing that is in favour of doing all of this using scrap wood, and it never sits quite right with 3D printing. Sure, in most cases 3D printing is a lot easier and can give you more accuracy, but there's always the issue of waste, especially when you're prototyping. I have been as careful as I can when making all of these, to spend more time in the design software than I do just printing and testing, all in a hope that I can minimise the wastage that I put out before I get to the final product. And though I suspect it's different region to region, if you can recycle the waste, please do. Now the next tool is one of my favourites from a video a long time ago. If you buy an MFT, which is one of those tabletops that has all the dog holes already machined into it, you're going to find those holes are really accurate and centred to 96mm. That's brilliant, and you can buy a load of these dog hole accessories straight off the shelf because you guarantee they're going to fit. If, like me, you took it upon yourself to just drill a grid relatively accurately, but not perfect, then you're going to need a little bit of flexibility. And that's where making these with one fixed dog and one that can slide gives you that little bit of extra leeway if your holes aren't exactly perfectly spaced. Now this is really easy to make from scraps. You just need one fixed dog, and then you just need another dog that's got a cap to stop it falling down into the hole that fits in the groove that you've cut. That way, no matter how much wiggle room you need between holes, you're okay. And for the 3D printed ones, the principle's exactly the same. The ones in the file are made to fit the 96mm to centre holes on an MFT, whereas I've had to make myself a custom one to fit this table. And you simply fix it between two holes using the wiggle room on the second pin to get it seated. And when you're clamping against it or using a hand plane against it, if you find you've got too much flex, simply up the percentage of the infill on your printer before you print it. And the beauty of these is the sliding dog doesn't just fit the planing bars, it also fits these right angle blocks too. So not only can you plane up against this and clamp up against this, but also if you've got a piece that's going to tip, putting it against a right angle is going to offer you more support. Or if you're hand planing something that's a slightly wonky shape. But if you find that the thinner versions are not giving you enough support, there's also a medium version, and a thick version. Now I wouldn't suggest that this one is designed really for planing against. This one is designed to be a support. It's basically designed to hold two pieces of wood in a right angle while you work on them, whether you're screwing through a butt joint or tightening off some pocket hole screws. You'll also notice in the file bundle that there's some Flexi dogs, as I'm calling these, with a slightly longer dowel at the bottom, just in case your holes are deeper and you need even more support. Now, I went a little bit overboard on the homemade version of the next build. These are simply just bench dogs that you clamp against. Each one's made from a block of wood with a 20mm dowel. What I've done with this is I've put the dowel off centre, so you can start with a shorter side, but if your clamp's got a long way to go, you can simply flip it and you've got less screwing to do on the clamps. And yes, in my usual way, I went over the top and I moved the dowel not just off centre in one direction, but off centre on the other. So now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 different directions, so you can really fine tune closing that gap. This one is unnecessary. This is with a funny shaped hexagon where you've got 6 different amounts to close the gap. It was a fun workshop win, and I made my 3D prints the same. This one is simply 2 different directions to clamp against. The other one is the off-centre 4 different directions, because I thought it would be a little bit of fun. But if you want bonus points, or style points if you like, glue some nitrile rubber on the top, and you've got some more square bench cookies to use in case you run out. You could equally glue some on the edge so that you don't risk marring your work and you get that little bit of extra grip. So whether you make these from scraps or you download the files off the site and 3D print these tools for yourself, all of them were made to solve little workshop friction issues that I was facing. And don't forget, if you're going to make the bench cookies, don't forget the free file for that little shelf for them, because I think having them together and close to hand is a really sensible choice. As I said before, we're just starting off with 3D printing. The website is going to start filling up with files. I'm going to do my best to upload as many free files as I can put on there with the paid bundles. Again, you'll see a link in the description taking you over to the website. While you're there as well, there's also a link to the Patreon where we do a lot of behind the scenes videos. I show my ideas of these 3D prints to the Patreon members first, and we just generally chat behind the scenes. Thank you so much for watching. If you click on the Patreon link or if you click on either of these, I'll see you over there.